Good morning, student. I am Purnima. I welcome you to my class of English. Now we were doing children the lesson Mother's Day. Okay, and I told you it is written by a very famous dramatist J.B. Priestley. So Mother's Day student is a drama, and I told you the three characteristics of drama are it should have a character, drama, characteristic. Okay, so it should have characters. It is a dialogue form of a writing, and it has scene or act, okay, or plot. So these are the three main characteristics of drama. So Mother's Day actually is a drama, and drama also have messages. Okay, so I'm going to start here with Mother's Day. It is having five characters. Okay, so who are the five characters here in the drama? In this drama, children, we are having five characters. One is Mrs. Anne Pearson, then her husband George Pearson, her daughter Doris Pearson, and son Cyril Pearson. And she had a friend that is Mrs. Fitzgerald. This she is her friend. So total we are having five characters. Then children, the whole Mother's Day, this drama is in the dialogue form, and the scene here is of the drawing room. The scene is of a drawing room. This is a comedy actually by um, J.B. Priestley, and it is a very serious issue which is put forward to us in a very hilarious or in a very humorous manner. Okay, and the topic is here, children, the role of a mother at that time and nowadays also, children. Mother is just a mother is there, and she is treated like a domestic servant, and she is very sincere, very honest, down to the earth. She do all the work, she takes order from her son, and then they don't realize daughter and from her husband. Every time she used to do work of them, but they don't realize her importance. They don't value her. They treat worse than the servant also. They humiliate her, they insult her, they scold us. Okay, and they tell what a thing should not be told to a mother, but she takes everything for granted. She keeps on doing the work, and even on she never sits even for 5 minutes. So one day when her friend visited to her house, what she sees the condition of Mrs. Pearson. Now her friend was a fortune reader, and she came in a neighboring house, so she was her neighbor also. So Mrs. Pearson, she shows her hand and she asks, "Can you tell my fortune?" And when Mrs. Fitzgerald reads her hand, she tells, "Your fortune is not good. Whole life you will be treated as the servant of the house." Now Mrs. Fitzgerald encourages her by telling, "Our destiny is in our own hand. The destiny which we are making, it is in our hand." So she is telling, you have to put your foot down. You have to be a bit strict with your husband, with your children. Then only they will be under control, and then they will live a disciplined life. Now children, Mrs. Anne Pearson, she gets nervous. She don't know how to control them, because till now she was very meek. Her personality is presented here as a very meek or weak mother, and she is accepting the order of each and everybody in the family. So she she tell Mrs. Fitzgerald that I cannot do that. But Mrs. Fitzgerald tell ki I will be helping you, because then she tells how she know I know an art, and she tells about an art which she has learned in the eastern side of the world. When her husband was in the army, he was posted there, then she has learned this art. So what is the art, children? The art is there, she can exchange her body. That means Mrs. Fitzgerald can become Mrs. Annie Pearson, and Mrs. Annie Pearson can become Mrs. Fitzgerald, uh, because she knew this art. So Mrs. Fitzgerald tell any person that she would help him. She will tell him how to treat them, how to bring her whole family on the right track. So Mrs. Pearson don't agree, but anyhow she tell ki no, you have to do that. Otherwise you will lose control. You will lose all your value of life. So you have to be bit firm. You have to be bit strict. Well, then she told okay. Mrs. Fitzgerald, she catch her hand in her phone. She looked into her eyes and she mumbled some word. Okay, some magical words, and then finally what happened, Mrs. Fitzgerald is turned into Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Pearson is turned into Fitzgerald. Children, it is here Mrs. Fitzgerald, she become strict in a family. She started scolding, she started behaving rudely, and she started drinking wine and smoking also, which the family had never seen. Okay, and finally children, she brings everybody in the track. So finally children, Mrs. Fitzgerald is at the door. Cyril calls her silly old bag. Mrs. Pearson tells him to ask her in and address her properly. Mrs. Fitzgerald is shocked to see how Mrs. Pearson is treating her husband and children. Well, children, George, her husband, in the last phase of the drama, he comes, he sits aside in armchair, smoking his pipe. Mrs. Pearson takes George to task for being impolite. George flares up as she rebukes him in the presence of their neighbor. He asks her if she has gone mad. Mrs. Pearson threatened to slap him on his face if he sees it again. George is intimidated. She mockingly asks him to leave for the club. So all this is too much for Mrs. Fitzgerald, who really is Mrs. Pearson, and she requests Mrs. Fitzgerald for a reversal to the original state. With the chanting of the magic spell, they regain their original personality. As a parting advice, Mrs. Fitzgerald asks Mrs. Pearson to be a bit strict and with her looks and tone sometime, to suggest that she might be tough with them if she wanted. This formula works. Children, finally Mrs. Pearson says that she wants them to stop at home, sometime give her a hand with supper, play a nice game of rummy. Mrs. Fitzgerald is about to leave. She is glad to see Mrs. Pearson, handling her family firmly. The trick works and all the members of the family agrees to do whatever she says. So children, finally she brought everybody to the right track, and we have finished this lesson today. In the revision part, I am going to discuss the question and answer from the sample paper and some important question. Or we can do also textual questions. So because this textual question is important, children, it is written here. This play is written in the 1950 and it's a humorous and satirical depiction of the status of the mother in the family. What are the issue it raises, and do you think it captures this lesson, or do you think that the problem is raises under genuine? How does the play resolve the issue? Do you agree with the resolution? The play raises many serious issues. The first and foremost is proper appreciation of a housewife roles and responsibility. So, what is the role of a household lady? Of course, she has to perform her duties, but she has her own self-respect also. She has to see that also. Without losing her self-respect, she should perform all her duties and responsibility. Those who work 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week treat the housewife as an unpaid domestic servant who must carry out their orders. They neither request her nor thanks her for her services. The second issue is the reciprocity of love and gratitude toward the mothers or wife. The husband, son, and daughter leave the lady of the house alone every night and go out to enjoy themselves in several ways. They do not take any notice of her and have become thoughtlessness and selfish. The mother excessive love, care, and promptness to serve them also spoil them. So children, this is some of the factors. Okay. Now, then my second question is, do you think it caricatures these issues, or do you think that the problem it raises are genuine? So the problem the play raises are serious. The treatment is of course comic. The playwright adopts an unusual method to resolve the issue. He takes the help of magic of the East. Incarnation of magical spell helps the interchange of the personalities. Now Mrs. Pearson, with the stronger and sinister personality of Mrs. Fitzgerald, gives rough treatment to the daughter, son, and husband respectively. Her stern looks and commanding tone suggest to them that she can be really tough. The spoiled members are brought round by the heavy dose of exposure of reality to them. They agree to stay and help in preparing the supper while the housewife has to talk with her husband. The resolution of the issue seems far-fetched and unnatural, but extreme means have to be adopted in disaster management. Okay. So children, this is the first question, and then second question you have to do by yourself. Well, then the third question is drama a good medium for showing social messages? Of course, drama is certainly a good medium for conveying social messages. Direct moralizing is often resented and usually ignored. Drama is a presentation of a slice of life through characters placed in various situations. The attention of the spectator centers around the action and reaction. Most of them feel fully involved with protagonists. The working out of theme generally leaves a message, sometimes obvious and explicit, but in most of the cases indirect and implicit. The social message of these plays seem to come out of the interactions of the characters and their traits of characters. Okay. These days we find many plays centered around them, creating social awareness such as evils of drinking and smoking, dangers of pollution, child labor, the decreasing female ratio, and need to empower women. Well, how are Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald contrasted? The two ladies are sharply contrasted. Mrs. Pearson is a pleasant but worried-looking woman in her 40s. She speaks in light, flurried sort of tone with a touch of suburban cockney. Mrs. Fitzgerald is older, heavier, and have a strong and sinister personality. She smokes. She has a deep voice, rather Irish tone. So, children, the comparisons of the characters can come. Then I'm going to discuss, children. Then characterization or the impression of Mrs. Anne Pearson can come in the examination, or Mrs. Fitzgerald can come. Then I will be discussing what do you think about the theme of the play. We have done the play, we have done the explanation, I've done the explanation. Then what do you think is the theme of the play? So let's discuss this. The theme of the play is the status of the women in the contemporary society and in their own household. The housewife serves the member of her family with complete devotion, sincerity, and love. However, she is never given the regard, attention, or thanks due to her. Her leniency and eagerness to please everyone reduces her to the rank of an unpaid domestic servant in her own house. Instead of being politely requested for a favor, she is ordered to do it. She gets no thanks, no values in return. The theme is worked out by a portrayal of the Pearson family. Mrs. Pearson is the harassed mother, her daughter Doris, and Cyril, her son, and her husband George take her services for granted, and have become thoughtlessness and selfish. The interchange of personalities. Okay, and the harsh treatment method out to them by the personality of Mrs. Fitzgerald in the body of Mrs. Pearson reform them and they obey the mother willingly. So this is the theme. Now children, a question is there from the sample paper. The shock treatment makes the thoughtless and selfish persons realize the real position of the lady of the house. Okay, so this is a nice question. The shock treatment makes the thoughtless and selfish person realize the real position of the lady of the house. How far do you agree with the statement? I fully agree with the aforesaid statement. Drastic situation need drastic remedies. The thoughtless, selfish, and spoiled member of the Pearson family do not understand the language of love and affection. Mrs. Pearson, with Mrs. Fitzgerald's bold and dominating personality and her toughness, makes them realize their own state. Doris is the first to learn her lesson in civility and politeness. The criticism of her boyfriend seems quite unexpected to her, perhaps more than the non-compliance of her orders of ironing yellow silk dress. Doris has tearful eyes. Cyrus is also told to help himself. The mother declaration that she too will henceforth work 40 hours a week, have the weekends off, and go somewhere to enjoy herself come as a shock treatment. The balloon of her husband's ego is punctured by disclosing to him how people at the club make fun of him. In the end, all the three members come round and show their willingness to obey the mother's command. So, children, it is due to the effort of Mrs. Fitzgerald, who really is who is in Mrs. Pearson. She becomes Mrs. Pearson, and because of her efforts, everybody comes on a track. Then two more important questions I am going to discuss with you. Okay, the play Mother Day is a humorous and satirical depiction of the status of the women in a family. So let me tell you the question again. The play Mother Day is a humorous and satirical depiction of the status of the women in the family. Bring out briefly the elements of humor and satire. So, the play Mother Day treats a serious theme in a light-hearted manner. The humor in the play springs from an unusual situation where the personalities of two ladies changes bodies. Their subsequent behavior, which is in total contrast to their previous one, is a very powerful source of laughter. The ignorance of the characters about the personality they are facing also creates humor. Suggestive dialogues also provide a lot of fun. For example, consider the following. Mrs. Pearson, if you had to live my life, it would not be so bad. You would have more fun as me than you would had you. Second, is that silly old bag from next door, Mrs. Fitzgerald? Taking her off now. Are you Annie? They call you Pompey Ompy Pearson because they think that you are so slow and pompous. The action, gestures, and reaction of the characters also provide humor. The housewife members go out to amuse themselves in sharply contrasted with the position at the end of the play where she is the mistress of the house. Then play also satirizes the 8 hours work culture and threats to go on strike. Even the housewife adopt this weapon. So children, you can see now I'm going to tell you something about the title of the play. Do you think the title of the play is apt? Apt means apt. Apt means suitable. So, or you can, this question can also be asked. Write a note on the title of the play Mother Day. So, how you are going to answer this question? The title of the play is quite appropriate. It sums up the theme of the play. It suggests that the action of the play revolves around a mother. The playwright confronts us at the outset with the problems of the mother faces from her grown-up children and their father. The novel techniques employed to tackle the spoiled children and the grown-up man is quite amusing and thought-provoking. The bold and dominating mother acts tough with the children and make them realize the need of proper attention towards their mother. They are made to learn lesson in courtesy and polite behavior not only towards the mother but also towards the visiting neighbor. The mother certainly has her day as the children learn to treat her properly. The superb being prepared by the children, their stay at home, and the family game of rummy is a rare gift that the mother receives on this important day. So I feel that the situation or the title is quite apt here, quite suitable here. Okay, then comment on the ending of the play. Now, children, when the play started, it was a very sad to see that how the mother is treated in a very bad manner, and the end was has a happy ending. So here the writer is telling to tell something about the end of the play. The play has a happy ending with a complete reversal of the initial situation. Mrs. Pearson is now cheerful while the family looks anxiously at her. When she smiles, they feel much relieved and smile back at her. None of them is going out. So for the first time, perhaps she tells the members of the family that what they should do. Instead of behaving timidly, she looks sharply at the family and asks if they have any objection. George is the first to say no. He agrees to do whatever she says. Still smiling, she suggests that they should have a nice family game of rummy and then the children could get the supper ready while she has a talk with her father. George supports her and looks inquiringly at the children. Cyril hastily approves the proposal with Doris Pearson agrees his hesitantly. A sharp command, "What speak up?" does a trick and Doris agrees. Mrs. Pearson bids goodbye to Mrs. Fitzgerald and smilingly asks her to come again soon. The ending seems quite natural. It also leaves a message for the mother. They should assert themselves. So children, these were the three important questions. Okay, and we have also discussed the theme of the play. Now children, some important short question. Okay, so here, so student, now some important short question. Okay, why is Cyril Pearson annoyed with his mother? Give two reasons. So Cyril Pearson feels annoyed when his mother tells him that tea is not ready as she could not bother about it, and he inquires if she is not feeling well and then asks her to be quick as he has not too much time. His mother has not taken his things out. She has neither mended them nor she is willing to do so. Now, well, that ought to be nice change for you, said Mrs. Pearson. What change does she refer to and how George react to it? George finds his wife, Mrs. Annie Pearson, drinking stout at the wrong time of the day. Stout is a strong wine. Moreover, he has never seen her doing it before. Naturally, he is confused and surprised. When he remarks that he doesn't like her drinking and it doesn't look right, Mrs. Pearson remarks about the change in her style. Now, she tells him now whatever she feels is right, and now she wants the change in her style. What is Mrs. Pearson's opinion about Charlie Spencer? Mrs. Pearson's opinion that Charlie Spencer is buck-toothed and half-witted, and she should not like to be seen dead with a fellow like Charlie Spencer. How do you think is George Pearson treated in the club? The members of the club laugh at George Pearson. He is in fact one of their standing jokes. They call him Pompey Pearson because they think he's quite slow and pompous. Although this joke is quite famous, George is unaware of it. Now, what is Doris' idea about the incident that made her mother behave so strangely? Doris suggested her brother Cyril that their mother could have hit her head against something and got a concussion, and therefore she is behaving in a very strange way. Why does Mrs. Pearson doubt the value of Cyril's opinion? She tells Cyril frankly that he knows nothing about worldly affairs. He spent too much time and good money at amusement shows like greyhound races, dirt tracks, and the ice show. Why is George Pearson incensed at Mrs. Fitzgerald's utterances? George reacts with horror and surprise when his neighbor Mrs. Fitzgerald addresses him by his first name George instead of the formal Mr. George Pearson. Her second remark, "Oh dear, I ought to have known," further incenses him as he thinks she has no business to poke her nose into their family affair. Now, what does Mrs. Pearson tell George Pearson what people's conception about him in the club is? So she tells him, she tells him, Mrs. Pearson, who is actually Mrs. Fitzgerald, tells her husband that he is standing joke for the other club members, and then they call him Pompey Pearson, as they think he is very slow and pompous. Why does Mrs. Pearson threatens to slap her husband? George feels angry at being humiliated in the presence of his neighbor. He loses his temper and asks his wife if she has gone mad. This is too much for Mrs. Pearson to bear. She jumps up and threatens to slap George if he shouts at her again. How is Doris taught a lesson in behavior? When Mrs. Fitzgerald remarks that Doris was going out with Charlie Spencer that night, Doris feels annoyed and retorts that she has got nothing to do with it. Mrs. Pearson rebukes Doris harshly and tells her to answer Mrs. Fitzgerald properly. She adds that she won't leave her daughter behaving rudely with anyone. What forces the real Mrs. Pearson to come to the conclusion that's enough, quite enough? Mrs. Fitzgerald, who has the body of Mrs. Pearson, has been quite harsh to George Pearson, Doris, and Cyril. The real Mrs. Pearson objects to her comment about Charlie Spencer. Later, when she is a bit rude to George, the real Mrs. Pearson feels offended. What is Mrs. Fitzgerald's final advice to Mrs. Pearson after reversion of their original personalities? So, children, after changing their personalities, what was the reaction? Mrs. Fitzgerald advises Mrs. Pearson not to go soft on the members of her family again. With a very difficulty, she has brought them to track. She should now start explaining or apologizing. She should give them a look or a rough tone of voice now, and then to suggest that she might be tough with them if she wanted to be so. What would Mrs. Pearson like the members of family to do? So this is children. She wants them to stop at home in the evening and give her a helping hand when she is preparing supper. She would also like to play a nice game of rummy, which she fails to have except at Christmas. How does the stern treatment reform the spoiled children? The children look apprehensively at Mrs. Pearson. However, they smile back at her as she smiles since they are not going out. She suggests having a nice family game of a rummy. She tells the children to get the supper ready while she has a talk with their father. The spoiled children meekly obey her. So, children, in this way, the whole system, in fact, it was the effort of Mrs. Fitzgerald who has reformed everybody in the house, and she has also helped her friend to gain a respectable place in the family and to gain the self-respect. Now children, the shock treatment makes the thoughtless and selfish person realize the real position of the lady of the house. How far do you agree? So I think I fully agree with the aforesaid statement. Drastic situation need drastic remedies. The thoughtless, selfish, and spoiled member of the Pearson family do not understand the language of love and affection. Mrs. Pearson, with Mrs. Frick's role, bold and dominating personality and her toughness, make them realize their own state. Doris is the first to learn her lesson in civility and politeness. The criticism of her boyfriend seems quite unexpected to her, perhaps more than the non-compliance of her orders of ironing the yellow silk dress. Doris has a tearful eye. Cyril is also told to help himself. The mother declaration that she too will uh, henceforth work 40 hours a week, have the weekend off, and go somewhere to enjoy has some come as a shock treatment to everybody. The her husband's ego is punctured by disclosing to him how people at the club make fun of him and he's a laughing center in the club. In the end, all the three members come around and show their willingness to obey the mother's command. So student, with this this chapter is completed. We have discussed all the important questions and long short, and with this I conclude my video here. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.